Hi everyone, it's Chelsea. Just wanted to give you everyone a quick update on kind of where Chris and I are and what we're doing. Because there's been some questions. Some people didn't know that we left Oregon or are wondering about Peace Corps and that kind of thing. And so I started this video and channel for YouTube as a way for everyone to keep up to date. So I guess let's start back in Ghana. And it was like March 20th. We got the email from Jody Olson, the National Peace Corps Director, stating that she had made the difficult decision to send all Peace Corps volunteers at all posts globally home in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. I believe it was a combination of wanting to make sure that we were with family and in the States if we did get sick and needed to have medical attention. And there was also concern of borders, as we found out later, international borders closing and us not being able to get home if needed. So it all happened really quickly within 4 or 5 days. They sped up our swearing in process and we officially became volunteers on a Thursday, and then we kind of were what it's called close of service, which means that if we were to come back as volunteers, we would now be returned Peace Corps volunteers, all within 24 hours, which is pretty unprecedented. And then Chris and I were on a plane that Friday, heading home, and it was scary because we didn't know what to expect in the States. A lot of the toilet paper hoarding, the severity of the sickness was all kind of just set aside on our end because it was halfway across the world and it was concerning obviously for family and friends getting it, and confusion on why there was so much hysteria, but we weren't really thinking about it daily. And so then when we were told we were heading home, it became very real very fast. um, and we flew through JFK, Salt Lake, and then we're home by like 10 p.m. We didn't want to spread anything that we might have picked up along the way, so we just picked up a car at the airport and we drove to an apartment that was very graciously provided to us while we were going through quarantine in Oregon. Um, and that was interesting. We were taking a slew of medications for malaria to make sure there wasn't any potential in our system. Schistosomiasis, we had to take pills for that in case we picked that up along the road. And just kind of daily monitoring of our overall health in case COVID was something that we had, gotten. And it was a lot. It was hard to be back in a valley that um, you'd essentially said goodbye to after you'd lived there for 13 years. Said goodbye to your friends who just had babies, are pregnant, about to have babies, friends who getting ready to get married, all these big milestone things, along with aging grandparents and maybe sick family members. It, it kind of it was a lot to think about. It felt surreal all the time. So then we were thinking about what to do next. Getting a job wasn't an easy thing. Possibility. We didn't technically have a place to live without income coming in, and so it just made sense for us to consider living with family. And my mom, who lives in San Marcos, has the space for that. And my full sister Josie had already made the decision to move to Texas because her husband was deploying, and with Chris and I being out of the country originally to be in Ghana for 2 years. She just wanted to be with family while her husband was overseas and potentially save money, all of that. So we all kind of came to the conclusion that it's something that we should do as well. So we spent another 10, 15 days in the Beaverton area helping Josie move and pack up her stuff. And then Chris and I rented a car and drove across the top part of the U.S. We went through parts of Washington, Idaho, Montana, cut into Wyoming, and then straight into Nebraska. And we stayed with my dad. The time in Montana was really nice. We stayed in 2 Airbnbs and kind of broke the trip up. We never did get a chance to take our wedding honeymoon, and so we found this cabin with a hot tub and campfire and all that, and it was just a really nice getaway. And then continued down, stayed with my father for a couple days, and ended up in San Marcos. Now, as part of the Peace Corps close of service, we have to do a pretty thorough um, full physical with the doctor. It's something that normally would have happened in Ghana, but because of how quickly we left, and there was like 42 of us, they said that we had to get that done in the United States. Obviously, with telehealth being the only option, kind of we were worried about getting that done, and it didn't happen until we got to Texas. So got settled in. The next day, we were seen by a doctor to get all the paperwork done. And it was at that time that my doctor discovered a lump in my right breast, and she said that she really thought I should go and get a mammogram and potentially an ultrasound as well to accompany that. So that was scary news. One of my biggest fears is having cancer. And I was pretty upset when I got home because it was a little bit of a intense exam. But I did move on scheduling the mammogram pretty quickly. It happened by the next week. That happened at the Austin Radiological Association. It's called ARA. They took a full mammogram on both sides, and then they did the ultrasound. And by then, I could tell that there was a mass that was tender. It had been messed with quite a bit in a short amount of time. And before, I just really chalked it up to underwire of the bra, just kind of digging in, or seatbelt from our long distance trip. It could have been any number of things with all that we've gone through in the last 6 weeks. And anyways, the doctor came in after the ultrasound tech had done the scan and said that the mass was there and that I needed to schedule a biopsy. So that happened, I think 4 days later, something like that. I was recommended from my doctor to see Heather King. She's an Austin breast specialist, and she's very good at what she does. When I got the biopsy done, they did it on 2 lymph nodes, one on my left side, one on my right, and then of course in the mass on my right breast. At that time, she said it was 95% cancer, and my mom and husband were there, but they couldn't come inside, and so they were on a phone call while she said that, and it was just really hard to hear. It was then that we just kind of had to talk about next steps. And from there, the biopsy samples were sent to a lab, and I had a follow-up appointment last Wednesday with Dr. King, where she confirmed that I have invasive ductile carcinoma. And positive thing was that the left lymph node was negative, but the right lymph node also came back positive. So in the next video, I'll talk about everything that went into that appointment and what our recommended next steps are. But that's where we are today. Everyone's very, very supportive. we're just taking each day as it comes. So thankful that I'm here in Texas and I don't have to be stressing about monetary things, housing things. It's just such a blessing. So thankful for my mom and sisters and husband and everyone who's reached out so far. And I'm going to continue these videos with kind of a check-in and where we are so that everyone can stay in the loop. Anyways, message me, put it in the comments if you have any questions, and I'd be happy to answer them. This is just a way, I believe, to keep everyone in the loop at the same time. So, well, more updates to come.